Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. You are watching the Mumgry Food for Thought series with Dr. MJ. Dr. MJ, we made it to the letter F. I can't believe it. We are well into February.
Awesome.
All right, so who do we have for the letter F?
This guy. Can you see it? Gaël Faye.
Okay. Sounds familiar.
He's I was like, would it be fair to leave out rappers and lyricists from my list of favorite authors because they are among them. They're some of the most revolutionary thinkers. Yeah. And Gaël Faye is he's a Burundian French Rwandan of Rwandan origin. Mm-hmm. And he grew up in France. He's a rapper. I think he's maybe nearing 40 years old right now, but he is hands down one of my favorite poets, lyricists, but he's in French, so the music is in French. And so I can tell you a little bit about him, and then I can tell you a little bit about the lyrics that I chose to share.
All right, so what is this photo that we're looking at?
This is the cover of his album.
This is the cover.
Yeah, there's a photo of me and him which we can share, or there's the album cover. I don't know.
Let's look at the photo of you two together.
Okay.
So where was this? What was happening? Was this a meeting, a chance, run-in? How did this happen?
Totally a chance run-in. I was very much fangirling, and it was at a coffee shop called Cafe Neo in Kigali in Rwanda. And he was there, and I was like, oh my God, is that Gaël Faye? Because I think a friend of mine in Montreal had introduced me to his music. I don't know how many, this was many years ago. This was probably like 5 years ago. Okay. And I was like, oh, totally scoping him out. And then finally revved up the courage to go up to him and say you're amazing. I love your music. I love your lyrics. They're brilliant. And I think that was the first time I met him, and I ran into him again maybe a few months, because I lived in Rwanda for a few months for my PhD. I ran into him again, and then I was very awkwardly like, you're better than Stromae. Oh.
You did not.
A completely unnecessary comparison.
Oh, horribly.
And they're probably friends. So it was and I love Stromae, and that was the joke, but he's the closest thing he's the non-pop version of Stromae. So he's this again, mixed. He's a child of colonialism, right? So his father is Belgian, his mother is Rwandan. He grew up in Burundi. He wrote an amazing book called Petit Pays, which is about the genocide in Rwanda and about growing up in Burundi and the kind of stuff that he witnessed as a young child. Mm-hmm. I haven't read the book yet. So he's actually an author, to be fair. Wow. But when I ran into him the second time at Cafe Neo, it was in the midst of when the protests were starting for Mike Brown and for all people being killed by the cops in the US, Black people being killed. Mm-hmm. And I was so angry that particular day. I was extremely angry. There was in my head, I was there's no justice. What the fuck is justice if the kid is dead? He's never coming back to life. There's no such thing as justice. No justice is possible, right? So he came in, he was like, oh, you, my fangirl. Hey, what's up? How are you doing?
You remembered who you were?
Yeah, he remembered me because I made such a big deal the first time I met him. Can I take a photo? Blah, 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 right? I told him, whatever. So he was like, oh, hey, what's up? You again, right? I think we know people in common, but that's not the point. Yeah. So he's like, how are you today? And I'm like, oh, I'm really angry today because I'm fairly straightforward and direct. And he's like, why? What's up? And I'm like, another person's been killed, another black person has been killed in the US by the cops, and there's no justice. What is there will never, I don't even understand why people what is the point of protest, because this just continues. There's never going to be any justice. And he's like, well, it's still really important to hold people accountable. Mm. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's no justice to be found, so what's the point, right? And this is a real conversation I had with him. And he's like, then he tells me that he was part of a group of people in France, Rwandans, French people that are not Rwandans, mm-hmm. who decided And I'm not sure how that started, but there was like, we're both Rwandan, so you know about the genocide, but so many people who committed the genocide who were like mayors or other people got away with it and went off and moved to France, Canada, US, whatever, and like new identities, blah, 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 got away with it. So he and this group for 20 years pursued a mayor in a small district of Rwanda who was responsible for giving orders to kill all the people in that area. They pursued him in France. So they used their own money, used the legal system in France for 20 years to build a case against this guy. And like the day I met him at that cafe, he's like, we won. We finally won. Like we proved this guy's guilt and now he's going to prison. And we brought, you know, the people from Rwanda that witnessed what he did to the courts in France so that he's held accountable. And I was like, whoa, right? And he's like, you know, they did it at their own expense. They didn't do it for credit or whatever, but they organized themselves to do that. And he's like, and you know what? Like doing that mattered to the people from that village, like that this man finally went to prison, that this man, it was finally said what he did, like that he didn't get away with it, mattered to them. So like, that's important. And then he's like, it's also important, you know, if he just had kids, whatever, he's like, for my kids, for the next generation to know, no matter what, no matter how long it takes, that there's no impunity, that nobody ever gets away with the stuff that they did, right? Like that is justice also. Like it's very important that we never get to a place where we give up on the fact that you're gonna be held accountable for what you did. And that's important. So he made me feel better.
Like that is the most powerful exchange.
Yeah.
You're there, you know, I remember that day like it was yesterday because I actually called into work when Mike Brown was murdered. Like that day when the news came out, I couldn't have a conversation with anyone. It was destructive. It just hurt the core of my heart. Running into him and hearing him tell you that you cannot give up on justice is such a, you know, and for of all people, do you know what I mean? Like you do so much to fight for social justice and to make sure that, you know, things change. And that was probably one of, you know, just such a difficult time for you. So to run into him, have him share that, it must have just, you know, injected you with so much more hope that was just stripped away from you. And, you know, and just that, like, I just think it's such a powerful experience. It was
a powerful moment.
Yeah.
That he was like, it still mattered for these people. Like, even if you think it doesn't matter to keep speaking up because it keeps happening again and again and again and again, it matters. It matters to the people who survived it or who are affected by it. It still matters. Like, it's not about justice. It's actually about not allowing a society where there's impunity.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, all right, bro.
Wow.
Love your music.
All right, so we got a quote from his music that you.
So there's a whole track called Président.
Okay.
I think it features I hope I'm not wrong, an Angolan musician named Bonga. Okay. And like, I want to play for you, and then I want to tell you what it's about. Like, but there's one part. So it says he's literally using. So if we go back to Aikwe Arma, or we go back to Cyprien Ekwenzi, he is talking about the post-colonial era in Africa, where a whole bunch of people came into power, presidents came into power, and exploited their populations for their personal riches, right? And then manipulated their populations. You know, you're this ethnic group, you know, fight amongst each other while I benefit, right? Yeah. So the song Président is about a generic post-colonial African president who, at the expense of his people, enriches himself, uses ethnicity to manipulate them against each other. The UN comes in and is like, oh no, we're not gonna get caught up in this war. We're gonna take our peacekeepers out of here and abandon them to die, which is, you know, what happened in Rwanda. So the story he's telling in the song could be Rwanda, could be Burundi, could be many, many African countries, right? So it's a post-colonial story, but in the song, aside from the song being like, just such a like, wow, yeah, that's what happens, that is what's happening. He also has a section in the song where a guy is basically caught up in the midst of the civil war or the genocide or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it depends on the story. I'm not sure if it was a civil war or genocide. Those are very distinct things. But he writes a love letter to the woman he loved so much that he couldn't tell her, I loved you. And it took me till this, when I'm facing death in this war, to tell you I love you. So it's a love poem within a song about.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You just have to hear it, and then I have to tell you the lyrics, and then you'll love it.
Okay, let's hear it, and I'm going to tap into my grade 4 French class and see what I can pick up, and then we'll get the translation.
Okay.
Ma bien-aimée, j'écris cette lettre avec l'espoir que tu puisses me lire. Les hommes sont bêtes, l'Afrique est belle, fais pas l'erreur de la haïr. Avec toi, je voulais vieillir sur ces collines dans cette maison. L'horizon s'arrête ici, je suis venu chanter mon oraison. Il m'enlève le galbe de tes hanches, le suave.
I wish you understood French because it would make you cry too if you knew what he was saying.
I mean, well, you wish I understood French well.
that he and him saying it like with his words and his voice. So that's for the part where I'm like, I play the YouTube and hopefully the emotion comes across, whether or not somebody who's listening speaks French. But he says, Ma bien-aimée, j'écris cette lettre avec l'espoir que tu puisses me lire. So that's, my love, I'm writing this letter to you with the hope that you'll be able to read it. Les hommes sont bêtes, l'Afrique est belle, fais pas l'erreur de la haïr. Men are stupid beasts. Africa is beautiful, don't make the mistake of hating it. Avec toi, je voulais vieillir sur ces collines dans cette maison. With you, I wanted to get old in these hills, in this house. And you know what that means in Rwanda, right? Mais l'horizon s'arrête ici. Je suis venu chanter mon oraison. So here the horizon, and the play on words, horizon. But anyway, the horizon ends here. I've come to give my oratory. Here's some French words I actually do not know. Il m'enlève le galbe de tes hanches, le soif de tes lèvres, sans trêve, umugwaneza, lumière de tous mes rêves. So I think it's like, I have found a way to speak. Umugwaneza is the name of the woman, the light of my dreams. And he's like, je dois quitter ce port. I can't believe I'm crying about it. Like, that's how much I actually genuinely, like every time I hear this song, like it makes me cry. Je dois quitter ce port, mon âme quitte son corps, mais mon amour, je resterai toujours à 2 enclabures de ton cœur. So I have to leave this port. My soul is leaving my body, but my love, I'll always be like 2 beats from your heart. I'm gonna leave in the minutes. Je vais partir dans les minutes qui suivent. Ma peine est lourde. J'espère que tu recevras cette missive. So in a few minutes, I'll be gone. My pain is heavy, but I hope you'll receive this missive. J'écris ces vers d'espoir, des fleuves de tourterelles, des tours de rêve, de brèves trêves de querelles. Il est trop tard, les soldats envahissent la parcelle. Ma belle, j'écris des mots d'amour que je parsème. Sur ce cahier, je vais finir ma vie. Et ce poème, la guerre m'a pris de court pour te dire je t'aime. So he's saying I'm writing these verses of hope, these dreams. But now it's too late because the soldiers are entering the compound. My love, I write these words of love that I'm parceling out in this notebook. I end my life in this poem. It took war for me to tell you I love you. Like, how beautiful is that?
So I'm going to ask you the question. What is it about that song that hits an emotional chord for you?
Well, I mean, he's Rwandese and he's talking to Mugwaneza. You know, you would know. We have so many of our people that were killed in the genocide, and people have been killed in Burundi. People are being killed in Ethiopia right now, and so many poets that died that we will never know. And you know, that you might hear all the stories of war and death and trauma, but like, it's people who love each other too in there. I don't know. It just hits because I'm like, how many beautiful people who loved each other died in the genocide that we will never know, you know? That's all. And also that I can see it. I can see the way he, if you heard the lyrics and like fully understood them, and I don't even fully understand them because his French is way above my pay grade. Like, it's so like, you know, I'm not even somebody who likes poetry, but I'm like, when poetry hits, it hits because it's like he's painting you pictures, you know. As I'm seeing him supposedly dreaming of growing old in, you know, the Thousand Hills of Rwanda. With Mugwaneza, but he can't because he's dying in a compound because of a stupid fucking war, because of, you know, a president, like a post-colonial president who chases the way of death, as Arma would put it. So that's what hits for me in that poem. Yeah, it fucking makes me cry. And you just, I don't know, just imagine a guy dying, writing in his notebook as the soldiers are invading and executing everybody.
Well, thank you.
Valentine's Day.
I mean, this is the real life Romeo and Juliet. Like, this is
across the world. Yeah. Romeo and Juliet. So.
Yeah. So thank you for translating it, because I don't think that any app would have been able to do that the way that you did, and you took French and were able to translate it to us in English, and you couldn't have picked a more beautiful person for the letter F for the month of February to represent.
Yeah.
For right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, people to listen to the music, even if whether or not they speak French. Yeah.
We are putting the link to the music in the caption as well. So take a listen and let us know what you think. Thank you.